Hello and welcome to today's episode. On today's episode, we chat with my friend Joe Pitt. Joe is a fitness model, a bodybuilding comp prep coach. He created the company Legacy Tours, and he also works in the IT field. In today's episode, we discuss how to become a fitness model. Is it worth it? What's involved? Doing bodybuilding comp repetitions from a coach's perspective. We also discuss the comps that I've done and Joe himself has done. We go over some basic nutrition and food sort of guidelines and some how-tos. We also talk about his company Legacy Tours, how to fit in being an owner, being a comp prep coach, and having a family, and much, much more. If you have any guests that you think would be great on this show, that have a great story to tell, I'd love to hear it. Send them through, we can have a chat, and we can get them involved. Enjoy. Mr. Joe Pitt, thank you for coming in. I greatly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, mates.
No worries. So you've been into health and fitness for quite a while. You played rugby sort of semi-pro when you were a bit younger. Has working in the fitness industry something you've always wanted to do?
Funny question, actually. It's something I kind of fell into, actually. I probably have to take it back a step from that. When I finished playing rugby, I had a knee operation and couldn't run anymore. So I was kind of looking for something to sort of fill that gap. And like I'd already been in gym a lot from footy, rehabbing different things. And sort of that was the path I went down and got a lot more into it, the nutritional part, trying to get lean because playing footy, I was fit, I was really healthy, but I was probably pretty chubby. So to sort of go into the next aspect, I sort of wanted to go into it. And funny enough, it's sort of around the same time that Instagram and everything had come out. And I really wasn't into Instagram at the start, but I did want something to do post-football, and like fitness and nutrition was something that I was already doing that could just be a really quick gap fill. Yeah. So, I was like, I started to see these people on Instagram. I'm like, I could do that. And Nina, my wife, was probably like, what the fuck are you doing? I just got in shape. A bit of a different process to get there and how I did it. Lots of learning and all the rest of it. But to get there, I got into that. Very, very short story is, got into shape, did a photo shoot within a week, had a contract with a supplement company, clothing brand, and somewhere else, and it all went from there.
Yeah, that's it's definitely not how it normally goes.
No.
How did that come about?
No, I think honestly, I wanted to get into shape. I just wanted abs once. This is my whole driver. I just wanted abs for once in my life. I'd seen, and everyone has these people around them that it seemingly seems like they don't put in a lot of effort, or they've just got abs and they just eat shit and they do this and you're like, I'm doing the same things this person's doing. So I'm like, okay, I just need to tick this box once. That was my whole goal, my whole goal. And so I did. I got into shape, and then I went and did a photo shoot at one of my old football mates' gyms, and I got Nina she did a photography course and learned how to do it, took some photos. I posted maybe 1-2 photos on Instagram, and a mate of mine, her partner worked for Optimum Nutrition, and they were like, Joe, Jared's put you forward to XX. They want to see if you're interested to do this, and literally had a meeting a week later.
Nice.
Yeah.
Were you would have already been working in IT then? You would have finished uni and stuff then?
Yeah, so I've never done uni. So no, I've never done uni. Even my IT stuff that I do now, I think I kind of fell into that as well. But
Mr. Lucky over here.
Well, you make your own luck. Right?
No, totally. I agree.
But I was working. I think I was about 32. So I was late to this whole thing. Do you know what I mean? And so when it came along, that's why my goals weren't like, oh, I want to do this, because I'd had a career in football, I had a career going. Nina and I were pretty close to starting a family. So all this stuff was sort of just like, a bit of fun. And yeah, so when that sort of kicked off, I remember saying to Nina, because it sort of exploded. I took, I think, a year off work, and because I started to do competition after I got the contract. Part of that was to do competitions and things like that. I had some success there. They started sending me to expos, and like I started to train with people like Steve Cook and people who were aligned with Optimum Nutrition. They'd sent me out over here and in the end over to America and things like that. But yeah, so I pursued that. I came back because I was competing. People were going, "Can you train me?" And I'm like, I don't know, So then I got all my certifications. By that time, it had actually been probably a 3-year journey to get there, building up my knowledge on what I'd already known from playing sports and doing everything else to be more specific around that type of coaching. And I was kind of lucky myself in the coaches that I had. I was able to learn quite a bit, but I'd never presumed to be, someone that just did a comp and I'm a guru now. The guys that I actually coached at the start, I was like, I don't know if I'm the right person. You should probably go to someone else. But they really wanted me to do it. So we worked with them. I worked with them, and then it sort of landed that way.
Yeah, nice. Kind of like you're both sort of learning at the same time. Like they're your first clients, but it's their first show. And
yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, for me, I was still competing at the time. So that was I'd miss a couple of shows or whatever and focus. But I'd also do it at the same time. And, it's often tough to do that with your clients, for a lot of reasons, actually. One was just because you're prepping, but I mean, we did it.
Yeah.
But I mean, depending on where people's body composition is when they're going into competitions and things like that, if you're competing with them or against them or in the same category or just competing such a mental mind array of things that happen. So, if they look at different people they're competing with or you, and they compare themselves and things like that, can really mess with their mindset. So, being a coach of someone and things like that can really play a part.
Yeah. We'll definitely touch on shows and coaching soon. So in the start, it's not like you were planning to become a fitness model or a bodybuilder because you just did a photo shoot because you wanted to get jacked, and then all of a sudden these opportunities present themselves. Were you a bit hesitant to compete initially, or you kind of were like, fuck it, grab the bull by the horns, let's try it and see what happens?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was kind of oblivious. I knew, Arnie, all this other stuff growing up. I was into gyms, doing research, doing all these other things for myself, but I was kind of oblivious to the Australian fitness thing. So when I got this contract, that mate of mine who sort of helped me out, it was her and her partner. They were sort of like, oh yeah, you're in for a treat here. They'll send you away. They'll do all this stuff, So it was a real eye opening to the industry, and then the bodybuilding shows that went with it. And Instagram, all the rest of it, all those type of things. It was definitely a learning curve on how to approach that. And that wasn't the goal.
Yeah.
But quickly realigned to what I was trying to do. And then, I think even through the sponsorships and things that I was able to get, even though I didn't, win shows or whatever, I still had a marketable image, which enabled me to have success. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know, it might be different now, but when you first started doing it, did they sort of tell you why you were a marketable image? Is it because you're handsome, or is it your physique matches what that brand is trying to push? Have they spoken to you about that sort of stuff?
Yeah, and you kind of work that out as well. Do you know what I mean? I think I had far less tattoos at the beginning, but Optimum Nutrition themselves, at the time they were the number one global company in the world, very clean skinned. Steve Cook was their main guy. So they get that, and he's like the All-American.
Yeah. Mr. Straighty 180.
Yeah. So like I guess a little bit they're looking like that here in Aussie for that type of imagery as well. So I kind of fitted that. There's obviously different sort of people and categories they're trying to tap into in different sports. So yeah, I think there is a little bit. There's not a huge amount. I mean, you're basically recruited based on what you bring. Do you know what I mean? Your uniqueness, whatever that may be, whether that's your look, your talent, those type of things.
Yeah, nice. So in your first year of coaching, like comp prepping, how was it? Was it as you expected? Was it harder than you thought?
This comes down to the client, right? Because like you really understand like the controllables. Like if you're PTing someone, like and coaching them for results, the truth is you'll have 5 or 10% of your clients that'll be like, I'm going to do this 100%, and another that will be in that 70 to 80, 50 to 40, and then I've done nothing. So so it just depends, and it is the same with comp prep because you can't control what people are doing. Like it's a very different circumstance where you might be catching up fortnightly, weekly, virtually. The first one was tough because you're like, oh, we'll do this. And it's really trying to work out how that individual responds to the food, nutrition, training, all those type of things. So it is a difficult one. And it was tough. I think one of the first guys that I prepped was doing really, really well. And then halfway through his prep, he had Crohn's disease. So it really impacted. He had to pull out, basically because he couldn't sustain those type of foods, and he ended up in hospital. But at that time, it wasn't due to what we had done. He actually didn't know he had Crohn's at that time, but that was one of the things that came out of it. So I mean, this happens a lot in prep. People have different things, allergies, all these other things that are impactful outside of the normal things that you're trying to do. So.
Yeah. Did you find is a bit of a, obviously you did it for quite a while. Did you find that the more you did it, the better you got at it and the more you were able to handle clients' demands?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and different coaches do different things. And, some are very like, mate, here's your time slot. Come in, talk to me. Here's this. Catch you later. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's fine because that's from a business point of view. That's what they're there and they need to do for you. It's very, very serious. Yeah. Like, the accountability rests with you. You're paying for a service, so you're going to get a service, right? But here's your instructions and off you go. So, I probably, focused a little bit less on like having bulk numbers or things like that. I focused in on that user experience and learning about people because I was very interested. One of my biggest things is, and I would always say to clients, like comp prep or not, is I want you to be able to do this without me. Yeah, I think that's like one of the key things. And as a PT, that's not probably the goal.
Yeah.
But that's just how I look at things. Like in life, if you're going to pay for something and get something out of it, you should be able to learn and be able to utilize that somewhere, right? So, I think. I forgot the original question.
It was about like just handling that because prep clients can be quite demanding, and it's not necessarily their fault. Like, no, we'll touch on it in a second of like how mentally draining it is to do a prep.
Yeah.
And if you've got 30 people that are all demanding your time, it doesn't always work.
No, it doesn't. But it's just you do need to set a few boundaries. Yeah, and one of the key things I used to say to this, hey, look, no one's making you do this. This is your choice. Probably need to remember that for the people around you, because they'll come in and they'll be like, oh, this person, these people, this. And you're like, actually, no, they're the same as they always been. It's just you, mate. It's just you. It's just you and how you're perceiving things. but they're the same as they've been every day for the last however long you've known them probably. So, yeah, it's just kind of managing that, to understand that things change, physically, hormone, tired, stress, all those type of things. So, yeah, spend a lot of time talking people off the ledge.
Yeah, it's it's easy to get on the ledge during prep. What on the flip side though? You obviously enjoyed it because you prep coach for a long time. What is it that you loved about that? Is it the end result, like the not satisfaction, but a bit of pride of seeing your client on stage and where they've come from, where they've gone, or is it other things? Like, what do you love about it?
Yeah, no, I do. I like because as much as I'm helping them, this is a personal thing for them. And I want to be able to maximize their experience. But, I just want to see them have their success, because you have different clients that come through, some that just want to hit this as a one-off and move on, and others that are like, I want long-term success with this. Yeah, but I mean, everything's a goal. Like I'm a competitor as well as a coach. So I know it's just trying to achieve those little small improvements and things over time. So that's it. I just like seeing people succeed. I like them reaching their goals. I win through people succeeding. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice. It's similar to, like, obviously their end result's different, but similar to normal PTing where like they come in with a goal, where it's like getting ready for a wedding or whatever it is, and them achieving that, you're like, oh, I helped them on that journey. Like that's the satisfactory part of doing it. So let's go through what's involved with the comp. I think a lot of people don't understand, I guess, the full intricacies of it all. And there's a lot. And we've touched on how mentally draining it can be and physically. Let's maybe start from let's go from your perspective, because you have your pro card. Run us through maybe from 12 weeks out up until show day.
Yeah. My you know what? Over the years, it's really changed for myself, right? Because sometimes, depending what your body competition is to start, is when you need to start your prep. Okay, so I guess typically, say like a 12-week prep, but that all depends. Yeah, some people need 20, some people need longer, some people shorter. At the start, I would do 12 weeks. Because you sort of. Sometimes you look at this and it's like it's a weird thing. Oh, we'll do like a couple of weeks to like beef you up and then we'll get going. And I'm like, haven't you been beefing the whole time?
Yeah.
Putting on weight, getting ready for this comp, trying to put on size. So, I mean, the reality is, you're just changing the composition. You hit a 12-week mark, actually set, some macros in place, and then start to actually stick to those, religiously. And then, I always look at it. It's not complex, right? It's really not a complex process. Create your calorie, a macro, meet that, see how you go. Once you do that for a couple of weeks, the body will automatically start to like improve. Your composition will improve. Then you can, once your body stalls, you base it on like, how your body responds. We'll make small changes. Is that responding? When do we need to use cardio? A lot of people just throw cardio in from the start. But cardio can be used as a bit of a weapon towards the end. If your body's working and dropping fat, like why would you throw something else in there that you could use as like at sort of later in that competition to really kickstart things if you get a stalling point. So, you can see what the food does for you, but it also does depend as well, because some people respond really well to cardio, and they want to do more cardio so they can keep their food higher. So they want more food, but they'll have to output more. And others are like, cut the food so I can do less here. So, and that comes down to an individual. Do you know what I mean? I think that's probably the main thing, is there is no one thing fits all. I can't just give you, Zane, the same thing that I have, because it just doesn't work. Do you know what I mean? Like, the foods and things might be the same, but the portions and different things, like maybe you can't eat this type of food. It's just not working well with you. So you can't do that. You have to change that around. And, I guess before that comp prep, it's always good to have a period of time where you're just getting to touch on those points to see how the body reacts. I wouldn't say that's part of the comp prep. It's just, what works, what doesn't, So if you working with someone for the first time, you've really got to understand that. But yeah, you sort of break it into your 4 blocks. Then if you're in a 12-week, change your food, and then your body will sort of dictate what happens through the rest. Yeah. Just reduction of your carb intake, make sure your protein fats are high enough, and then, bring that down, adding cardio. It really is, you can't predict it, because sometimes someone just goes, bam, everything works really nicely. You get to 3 weeks out and someone just goes, fuck, won't work. I've been looking at photos on Instagram of so-and-so, stress cortisol's popped through the roof. All these type of things happen. This has happened. Comp prep seems to bring out like all the miracle things that have never happened in life, right? So,
excuses.
Well, I mean, sometimes the excuses are just random shit, man. Like, I've got this, so, but yeah, I mean, I look at comp prep very simply. It's just a matter of being controlled in what you're doing and your output for a period of time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Like, I mean, even because I've done 2, the first show, I think I looked better 3 weeks out than I did on show day. And that was, different protocols, different reactions and stuff like that. And then obviously when we did it with you, a lot better on show day compared to the previous one. I guess with that question, I was more so trying to give people an understanding of, let's maybe stick generalizing in terms of like you said, you get to sort of 3 weeks out, see how you're responding. Maybe, yeah, I guess you're right. The first sort of 11 weeks is just dieting and training and adding those variables in. Let's maybe look at 3 or 4 days before showtime.
Yeah.
Once again, everyone's going to be different. But I just want to give people an understanding of like, on show day, you don't really eat carbs till a certain time. You don't have water till this time. And like just an idea of some of the protocols.
Yeah. And even that is not fixed. You know what I mean? I think like, a lot of time before you would water load into a comp, right? So water load, you might do that for increasing your water or intake, or keeping it at a really high level for a number of days, and then really reduce that the day before and the day of. But you could also kind of do the opposite of that, where you sort of just keep it moderate the whole way and then push it up. Like, water actually will pump up the muscles. So you're pushing carbs in water. It doesn't have the negative effect that you try to dry out or the rest of it. But if in a morning you can have none, but your muscles will tend to flatten out. But you can also get in there. You push in like 500 mils, a liter of water, and you just watch your body transform, because it's soaking up all the carbs that are sitting there from the carb load that you've probably done. So that's the other part. You can carb load, front load into the show, or some people have to make weight, so you've got to hold off to get them to weight, and then you're trying to push as many carbs in kind of until before the show. But you also don't want people to spill over. So spillovers by you consume too many carbs, and basically you just look like you're covered in a film of water. So you can fuck the whole thing up right at the end.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was getting at, is like, people don't understand that you can do 12 weeks of work, or 20, half a year, whatever, depending on your prep.
Yeah.
And if you have the wrong coach, or if you just get it wrong that one time, you can fuck that whole prep because you look too bloated or too watery or whatever it is on the day, just because you drank that half a liter too much water.
Yeah.
And that half a liter of water and you still look great, but compared to the person next to you who got the protocol right, they've got fuck all on there. It's like veiny, it was dick skin everywhere, every vein popping. Yeah. That's especially in bodybuilding.
Yeah.
It
happens every time too. You're backstage, like, because everyone's been dieting for so long, they're backstage and there's all these hungry people, and they're basically, they see the person next to them just smashing food. They're like, oh, if he can eat food, I can eat food. You're like, don't eat the fucking food, man. Don't eat it. We've got a plan. You got to fuck it all up.
Yeah, it's so hard, isn't it?
Yeah. So they're back there, and like, people have got donuts. They got all this stuff for after the show. All of a sudden, you just watch people. They just start like just picking into it. Like, mind you, I've seen some guys backstage that there's a guy we used to compete with. His name was Jamie Skippen, and he was a freak, man. He'd be backstage just eating shit, and he'd just fill out and get harder and harder. We're like, just eat this, bro. Just eat this. Just eat. And he's like, yeah. And he's just getting better and better. Like, what the fuck?
The opposite of what should happen.
Yeah. So he's just a freak, man, so.
Yeah, and that's it. And every, like you touched on before, every different coaches have different protocols. Like some coaches, have a glass of wine or whatever it is to get you vasodilated. Some say like a little bit of Viagra. Everyone has like different tricks to do it. And you're backstage and they're smashing a handful of lollies and they're eating like rice cakes, and you're like, oh, that's different to what I'm doing. And then all that like doubt comes into your head because your brain, your mental health has gone to shit because you're depleted and you question everything. It's a roller coaster.
Well, that's, what's that? You look at yourself, and I'm sure you've done this. Is you look at yourself, and you're like, oh, I look like shit, And then, like, obviously, 2 weeks after the show, when you look back at your photos, like, oh, it's fucking great.
Yeah.
So, but your mental imagery of yourself sort of just dysmorphs a little bit. I think that's a big part about competing. Like, and people do it on the daily. You wake up in the morning, you might look good, maybe a little bit flat. You'll have something to eat, some water, and then you're like, oh, I've gone to shit, right? Which is kind of impossible, but but then like at 12 o'clock when you check again, because you're checking every hour on the hour, you're like, oh, I look good again. Do you know what I mean? And then this goes on all day, and then, you finish the gym and you're like, oh, I look good. And then right before I go to bed, I look shit again, right? So you go through this premise. And so I used to always say to my guys, just check yourself in the morning, forget the rest of the day. If you can just look at yourself in the morning, I'm sweet, okay? You stick to your plan, all the rest of it. If you check in the morning and that's your only check-in point, that's your only visual reference point that matters, the rest of it doesn't, because you'll change like 5 times or so. Your mental state is able to stabilize a little bit because you wake up, you're like, I know that's myself. I'd be like, I'd look at myself. I'm like, that's not great. I'm like, I'll just check in the morning. I wake up in the morning. I'm like, sweet.
Yeah. That's it. Like it's impossible when you're in prep to get out of the shower and not look at yourself in the mirror and go, oh, this could change and this could change. And
10 flexes.
Yeah. Practice your poses. And that is something I wanted to touch on as well, is like the mental health through prep. People who don't prep can get a bit of body dysmorphia and stuff like that. And depending on the type of person you are and stuff in situations, prep can make it worse sometimes. Or some people aren't affected. Like even something as simple as on the show that we did, the week before, 2 weeks before, I was like, I fucking hate this. I'm never doing it again. I can't wait for it to be done. And then literally the next day after the show, I was at breakfast and had this giant plate of food. Saw my brother. I'm like, oh, it's so good. I can't wait to do it again. And like 24 hours ago, you said you hated it. You're like, yeah, I've got carbs now.
Yeah.
Talk us through maybe some of the challenges that people face in prep, just general.
Yeah, look, I think this is the mental battle is probably the main one. Obviously, it's just to be in a prep with the wrong mindset. You're probably always going to fail. Like, stress is a killer. If you're stressed out, you've got too many problems going on, or you don't have mechanisms to deal with it. It's tough. Like I know for myself, like at the beginning, prepping was way harder than it was at the end because I had a different outlook on it. So that point that I made before where, I remember probably my kids were maybe 2 and I'd done a few shows in between, and poor Nina put up with, grumpy me, walk around, fuck this, this. And I just remember looking and, at one point and just saying, look, this is my choice. I can't let it impact those around me. This is, and that's work. Sorry, that's family work, all those things. So that's my choice. So if I have to use my mental capacity to be up and, make sure that I'm engaged and all the rest of it in those times that matter, that's what I would focus on. And then when I had downtime, that's when I would, but because it is my choice, I don't need anyone else to be impacted by the decisions I make or how I'm choosing to feel. But I think, that's the same for everyone. It's those interactions, and the mental thing is, and the purview, I think, is, these people are agitating me, right? But it's a personal thing. You're, what's the word for it? You're pushing onto them. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that's probably the main part. I mean, food restriction, always going to be tough, if you've got a sweet tooth and all the rest of it. I used to probably at the start gorge a fair bit, like when I could eat and all the rest of it. And my food relationship now is completely different. I never gorge anymore. Actually, my food became food for fuel, and I actually just want more food most of the time. I like really simple things, so sandwiches, random shit like that, cereal.
Yeah, American cereal. You love cereal.
But even that, I've slowed down on that. So, but yeah, look, I think probably the main one is there's probably three, which is the mental state, the food restriction, just being able to cope with that and understand that. And the third one is, I just had it, I've lost it. The third one is just, I can't even think of it. Yeah, I've lost
It's
it.
all right. Yeah. Fuck, now I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, it's definitely something. Look, if you want to do it just for the sake of doing a comp, it's obviously easier to do that. But if you're doing it to win or to become a pro card and all that sort of stuff, you've got to want it. It's one of those things, kind of like everything, you got to want it to do it. But like in bodybuilding and stuff, like for you to be successful, there's a lot of sacrifices to make, and you've really got to want it. Like when it's date night with your girlfriend, you're like, oh, I can't actually go to dinner with you. I have to like go and get steak and a vegetable, and then all those sort of sacrifices and stuff. It's part of the complexity of it all. Do you have any maybe advice for someone that is thinking about doing it?
Well, I think one big question is, and you sort of touched on it there, is like, what do you want out of it? I think this is the biggest question. You'd have lots of people come to you that go, I want to do this show and I'm going to win it, and you're like, have you looked at yourself in the mirror, dude? Do you know what I mean? Like just the reality check of like where you sit and then what other people look like, and really understanding that, because people they've got a head start on you on a lot of things. And, to say, it's great to aim high, but to be realistic in your expectations. Yeah. So, so there's, what is the reason? Like, do you want to become a professional? Do you want to do whatever? Like, what's your expectation of what happens after that is probably my question. Like, because I could tell you.
Yeah.
So
the numbers don't lie.
No. Yeah. So that, like even to become a pro. So yes, that's a huge achievement, all the rest of it. But, unless you have really good sponsorship or a business aligned to it, all the rest of it, there's no money, right? There's no real money. Okay. So, it's a bit of a shiny disco ball. Okay. But the reward is what you make of it. Yeah. And then if you want to do it as a personal accomplishment, awesome. Do you know what I mean? A lot of people I know I coached came in and that's all they wanted. They wanted to do it, but they were already really focused in on things already. So they were probably the most successful because they were like, it is personal, like goal over, I want this to achieve X. You know what I mean? Like if you want to, and I was kind of the same, like I just want to do this for me and then everything else happens. Okay. If it's going to happen and you've got the right look, the right marketability, the right business, those type of things attached to it, it'll happen. Okay. But you've got to have that lined up. And if some of those things are missing, what are you going to bring to the table? So, it is a business, like competing is a marketing tool, to help promote business. And you'll see PTs do that. They'll do the competitions and it's not necessarily to, yes, they want to be successful in the competitions, but they're driving their business. Yeah. So they're driving that to be able to, maybe they do a photo shoot, maybe they do X type of things to be able to get content, to be able to drive their own business, PT, online, whatever it may be. So, when you ask about my advice, I think Yeah, look, it's a tough one. I think this really is a personal choice, but I think those are the factors you got to bring into it. Like I said from the start, mine was a bit weird because it was a prerequisite of a contract that I was going to do, and I was like, oh, I know you sort of asked this at the start. I was like, oh, I could give it a go. Do you know what I mean? I may as well. We'll just see what happens, and we'll go from there. And a bit like yourself, I did the first one, and I came second in my first comp, and I was like,
That's not like me.
and I mean, I've seen some photos.
Yeah,
I was bad. I was really bad. So, but yeah, look, and yeah, look, so that sort of led me to drive on. And like you forget very quickly the pain you go through. I remember before the first comp, we were staying down at Southport, and he goes, I'm just getting out and I'll be back. She had to go get something. So she comes back with she had Hungry Jacks or something like this. And I'm like, why are you eating that in here? Like, why didn't you eat it before you like, I can't eat anything. Like, why are you eating that in here now? But yeah, so
it's not her fault.
No. But again, that's the thing.
Yeah.
My choices. But yeah, look, that's the driver. What do you want out of it? I think so. I don't know what advice to give, because it's a tough road to follow, right?
I think you nailed it though. Like, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
And if you figure that out, I think the rest of it becomes not obvious, but a lot easier to navigate.
Yeah.
Because you can just keep referencing back to that.
Yeah.
Like if you want your pro card, then you just keep referencing like, well, this equals this equals this equals this.
Correct.
Or if you're doing it for just like I did it just to do it, I was surrounded by guys that did it all the time. Like, fuck it, I want to try it. And then the first one wasn't great. So then it was like a bit of redemption. Like, no, I want to do it properly again. The light at the end of the tunnel was 4 more weeks. That's it. Yeah. 4 more weeks, yeah. 4 more weeks, 4 more weeks. And then that's like your motivation. And whatever it is, that will help you get there a lot quicker. Well, not quicker, but get through it.
Yeah. Yeah, at that gym at the time, everyone was competing, right?
Hey, when you work, when you PT in a world gym.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's actually so funny. I went from fitness first being, one of the stronger guys there. And then you go to Worlds and you're not even middle of the pack anymore. You're now the smaller fish in the big pond. Yeah. Okay, sort of on that, in your eyes, what would be some things to look for if you're choosing a coach, a prep coach? Because there are some shockers out there and there's obviously some legends out there.
Yeah, there is. And I think just really someone that's got, an understanding, they've been in the industry for a while, and you'll know when you have a discussion with them, one, they've got your health interests, they have honest discussions with you. They'll give you honest feedback from the very beginning. Do you know what I mean? Like if you were to just say, if you go to someone, you're already in a good state, and they talk to you about your prep, that's good. But also if you're coming through and you're not ready, you want that feedback straight away. No one I would never want to put someone on the stage that's not ready, so that, they don't know, how do they accomplish what they wanted to do? I mean, that's probably a big part of it. I think is you need honesty out of your coach, and blunt honesty.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So that if you need 2 years to build to do that, that's the case. I had one of my clients, one of my good mates, Marty, and he 4 years it took him to get to stage, so, which was a long path, but ultimately a big tick box for him. Yeah. But yeah, just had to be brutally honest,
Yeah. Yeah. There's nothing worse, but you see it in shows, you go up and why is that person up there?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's has the coach just done it for that? Or then sometimes they can be no, I'm going up irrespective.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other things? Obviously honesty.
Yeah.
Just experience.
Yeah. Experience, obviously. If someone just, I mean, I put myself in this category, but after you've done a few shows, they're not a prep coach unless they've been in the industry doing things for a while and then they've been able to apply their trade there. If you do a comp and you win, or you come place, or you do this, you're not automatically a prep coach. Do you know what I mean? You need to have some trial and error, some real success behind you. So, there's, depending what federation you're doing, There's some pretty solid names out there, and you'll be able to get good feedback from other people and their experiences. So,
Yeah. Let's touch on maybe like being a pro. Like, well, I know they're two different things, like a fitness model and your pro card.
yeah.
What does it take to get there? Let's talk from your, I know different federations. Let's just talk from your experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, it took, it just takes time and persistence, you know, like I think when I first started, I would do a show and I didn't actually really ever ask the judges for feedback. And I still don't, because I would do a show, I would look at my own physique and be like, oh shit, okay, you need to be better here. You know, brutal honesty back to myself, and then try and work on those type of things. Like I did men's physique at the start with IFBB. So I went through there. I did feel, you know, not based on my results, but just in general, back when we were doing that, it's quite political at the time. Some of the results that they got through in those. But, you know, regardless of that, every time was an opportunity for me to look at my own performance and how I was going. Am I achieving what I needed to do? And then when I went to WBFF, I actually got my legs out, and that sort of changed my whole appearance, you know, and what I was sort of doing. But yeah, I think to be a pro, like it doesn't happen overnight, you know. There's a lot of work that needs to go in. And again, I have to say the same question: is what do you want out of it? You know, like, you know, it's a lot to get there. It's a lot to maintain. You know, is the goal to be a pro just to have the status card for your business? Is the pro because you want to go on a bigger scale worldwide? And are you trying to draw in sponsorships, all the rest of it? Because, you know, realistically, unless you're, you know, Mr. Olympia, or there's not huge money in it, you know, from competing, right? Probably costs you more to compete than it will to what you win, right? So, you know, there is obviously accreditation and things that go with it, which is great, you know. But yeah, I think, you know, yeah, that's the big question. Like a pro is a status, right? It's not a money card.
Did you find getting the pro card changed anything for you in terms of sponsors or fitness modeling gigs or anything like that, or that was sort of already set?
Yeah, nothing didn't change anything for me.
Yeah.
Do you think that's because
because you already had it? Do you think maybe someone who, because your situation's a bit unique, based off maybe people that you know, because obviously you know quite a lot of people in the industry, did it change for them in terms of they didn't really have many sponsors or anything, and then they got the pro card and they got a few? Or usually when you're getting to that level, everyone's sort of set anyway?
Yeah, look, to be honest, I think most it's probably the way that I came is in terms of, you'll find most people will come in and do a show when they do get their pro card. If they're really good, they've already got everything. Yeah. They've already got the sponsorships. They've already got X, Y, Z. So, you know, some of the people that win the shows are they've really grinded to get to their position, and, you know, they build opportunity out of there. But I honestly find most of the people will have it before they have a pro card. Do you know what I mean? What that does then, depending on where you land, enhances your opportunity to be able to draw bigger contracts and things like that. So, you know, there's obviously other people. I mean, a great example would be Rachel Dillon back in the day. You know, she came in, didn't have a big follower base, won, you know, the world championship, and then, you know, won a pro card, then 3 world championships back then. So everything exploded for her. Do you know what I mean? But so that can happen as well. But probably predominantly, most people already have a sponsor or something in place before they win their pro card.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they're already in the industry. They've already been building, you know, that physique and their brands and whatever they're doing for an extended period of time already. So the pro card is like they're trying to ice it. They're trying to ice off the cake. Do you know what I mean? And like really maximize out, you know, their status within that industry.
Yeah. I think the days of just use Rachel Dillon as an example. There's a lot of people that did that where they got big, they won quite a few shows, and then their PT or the online coaching or whatever just hugely took off. That doesn't really happen anymore. I think that landscape's changed, or maybe I'm just not in the scene anymore. I haven't noticed it, but
it's a very saturated market.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to put it. Yeah,
everyone's got an app. Excuse me. So yeah, look, it has changed. Like, and I think I was kind of lucky coming through. In that Instagram was just starting. The influencer thing was a thing, but still early stages. Like, it's funny today. It's Zach's birthday. So mate of mine who we'll probably chat about later, I guess. I competed against him in our second show. That's where I met him, down there, because he was laughing at me because I was eating Subway before I went on stage, and then we just became mates. And but yeah, we were both at that sort of really early stages of that, and got the opportunity. He obviously exploded. My direction was a little bit different. But yeah, like, it's a funny thing. I actually was thinking about this today, because Zach took a really great path. He took an opportunity to go overseas and do all these things and shoot with a lot of photographers. At the time, that was a pathway. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, come on. And I'm like, man, I've got a kid. I've got a job.
Single versus married with a kid.
All these things. I've actually got responsibilities. He's like, yeah, you'll be sweet. And I'm like, sorry, mate. And so he literally took that path and exploded. So it worked really, really well for him. Obviously, and I sort of stayed and just did my path here. And the other part to that, though, is Zach is a salesman. Okay, he's very good at it, very charismatic. All those type of things in the pathway that he builds. And when I look at, I never really fully committed to that. Do you know what I mean? To be that, because I had a job and I had different things and I just had different priorities. He was like all in, whereas I was like, I'll sort of just do it. And, probably back to that point where I would rather see, I could do it, but I was more embedded in seeing other people have success, and priority being my family and different things like that. Yeah. So,
different stages of
life. Completely. Like I said, I was old already. We were older. Yeah. Like, he was 22, I was 32. So
big difference between single 22-year-old. You can do whatever you want. Like, you got a wife and a kid. A real job. Okay, let's touch on that, because one of my questions was about the health and fitness space at the moment, especially online. There seems to be a lot of, whether the internet has brought it more in focus because everyone has access to it. This isn't, not saying Zach is, but there's a lot of snake oil salesmen out there, and take this tablet and lose this weight, and and influencers that aren't influencers are just hot and throw a program on there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do you think it's hard for the general public to find the truth or good information? Or do you think people are getting better at sifting through the shit now? Like, they can see a fake when they see it?
I think they've always been there. It's just more prominent now. Do you know what I mean? Especially back in the day before there was so many, you guys could make a killing. Do you know what I mean? Because they were great salesmen, they were great marketing. They had a team that helped them, that did different things. Now there's a lot more people out there trying to push that same side of thing. But I think it's the same problems. I think even back to when I was researching, you really are filtering through the shit to get there. It's, people try and overcomplicate it. It really, when you come down to it, it is actually, and it is hard to get. From when I started, it's hard to get at the beginning. Even when they talk about macros and things like this, someone will be like, "Oh, how many
percentages?
How many carbs? How many carbs do you eat a day?" You're like, "Oh, I'm eating 200." Like, some of my macros are 3,000, 200. My protein's 250. My fats are 70. My carbs are 200. Okay, just say. And they're like, "So that's 200 grams per meal?" And you're like, maybe. But it's just all that understanding, and it does become a lot easier the more you get into it. But I think that we just don't have the right education on that. Like I think when I stopped playing footy, I actually was speaking to a couple of clubs and I went and did nutrition talks with them and all the rest of it. So these backward guys that I knew were talking about, and we would say to them, just tell me what you eat in a day, right? So just tell me a normal day. And they're like, oh, in the morning, probably skip breakfast, then I'll have a meat pie, chocolate milk, maybe, and then not eat again till after smoke or lunch, Subway, and then not eat again before training, and then smash them for pasta or something. So they'd have 3 meals in a day. So this is someone that's labouring all day, doesn't eat before they train. So they train for an hour, hour and a half, and then go home, have something to eat, and then do that all again. You're like, yeah, and then smash piss all weekend. Do you know what I mean?
Queensland Cup diet.
Oh, right. But there's, and they're like, oh, I wonder why we're not improving. Why can't I hold my weight? Why can't I do these type of things? But even through those talks, so that was the premier players. Like some of the premier players are doing that. And then even after the talks, it would be the parents that would come and see me, of the 14, 15-year-old kids, because they're like, I need to build my kid up. Do you know what I mean? So the education just isn't there. So that's not just football. That's in everywhere. General, yeah. Everywhere. Realistically, there should be some type of topic within your schools, and it's not to talk about being obese and all the rest of it. It's just giving you some knowledge of how many times would you give out a diet to someone, right? And you go, look, I just, what's your goal? It's to cut body fat. All right. Here's this diet plan. A week later, 2 weeks later, how's it going? And they're like, oh yeah, I've just been going to Woolies getting the hot chooks from here, and I've been getting and they just, you talk through all this food that they're getting, and you're like, okay, that's a good option, but they're the worst options of the good options. Yeah, do you know what I mean? They're almost probably as high calorie as you go to Macca's. Do you know what I mean? So that knowledge, but in their head,
they don't know.
They're doing the right thing. Do you know what I mean? So it's not that they're trying to make a bad choice. They're making the best choice that they know and understand. And the truth of that is that knowledge comes from our parents. Yeah. And they teach us our habits. My parents were the same. Do you know, I think we were a bit strange. We didn't eat out. We only had, Macca's or takeout once a month when we were kids because we had a big family. And, so I think part of that helps me now. Yeah. I'm not used to just having shit all the time, but it really does. It comes, those habits. You've got a lifetime of habits, a lifetime of habits that people have that they're trying to overcome, and it's breaking that becomes really hard. So not only are they trying to navigate through all this information, when, there's a clear path here, but I'm just getting all these mixed messages over here. But then you've also got all the learnings that you've had from your parents and your upbringing and your life. If you're 25, 30 years old, that's a long time, fighting against you in the middle to keep on that path,
Yeah, you're right. There's no, well, I actually don't know. You have kids. They don't get taught in school about.
No,
are they now starting?
No, they don't. And mate, the tough things is kids as well. I think I've told you this before. Sonny, so my son, he just wants to eat porridge. So he'll just eat oats probably 5 times a day. That's nothing to do with me. Yeah, just nothing to do with me. He just wants to eat oats 5 times a day, and cheese. It's really hard to get him to. He's starting to eat meat now, but he just hasn't wanted to eat it, neither of them. And then they've just sort of started jumping on it. This morning we got a sausage after soccer. So he was pretty, it's good sausage, mate. Sweet.
Yeah. And it comes from our parents, and they didn't get taught anything, because also, depending on where you grew up, if your parents weren't well off, they ate what they got. There's no choices. When you're poor, you get what you get.
Which was veggies and something. Do you know what I mean? Or rice, and it's pretty basic, you do look at the pictures back, to the 70s. Everyone was pretty fit. There was less, ease of stuff now. It's really easy to be bad.
Yeah, I think it's easy to get caught up in I don't want to say media, but like one day you read an article and it's like tomatoes are bad for you, and the next day it's like carrots are bad for you, and rice is like everything's bad for you.
Mhm.
And I think that's where a lot of people get
Yeah.
caught up.
Yeah.
I guess the simplest thing, maybe, is there any tips you have for just generalize, like if someone's trying to become, a bit healthier, like
Yeah.
just the basics, like.
Yeah, look, and it is a good point because sometimes I'll see stuff and I'm like, is there any validity to that?
Yeah.
So you'll
we
read
know,
about it,
yeah.
you're like, I'll read about it, you're like, that's bullshit. What do you know that works to lose body fat, right? And that is, if it comes out of a packet, it's probably not the best, right?
Yeah.
Now, in saying that, frozen veggies are all G. There's a couple of things that are an exception to that, but if you've got to cook it and you've got to make it, in the most part, you're probably better than not. That's just a generalized statement. But yeah, I quite often help people with that. The same thing I was talking about before. You'll give them some nutrition and go. This would just be people at work sometimes or whatever. I'm like, here's some nutrition, and see how you go with that. And I'll go, how you going? They'll tell me, and they're like, oh yeah, barbecue chalk, this. And you're like, okay, now let's change that, But yeah, look, if you really want to make a change, it's worth talking to someone who's, has a good reputation in that field. Apps are okay. Like, honestly, apps are all good. If you've got an understanding, if you've got a basic understanding of nutrition, and when I say basic, I mean enough to understand what macros are, and what the split is. If not, you really need to go to someone who has information that can give you the right sort of direction. And sometimes for mine, like, I've had people go to nutritionists. Even sometimes I find the nutritionists aren't always awesome. Sometimes like a good coach can give you like really good food programs that a nutritionist would never assign to you because they have a different way of thinking, especially around gym. Yeah, especially about trying to better, your improve your composition. Nutritionists are basically, in my head, unless you get a very good one, and trust me, there are very good ones out there, it's more general health. Yeah. Not so much sports orientated.
Unless there's sports nutritionist.
Correct.
Yeah. I was going to say, that someone once said, like, if your grandma couldn't eat it, you can't eat it, in terms of like, healthy eating and stuff like that. And I thought about it, like, that's a really good saying because it has to be fresh. I think that's the thing. Fresh, no minimal packets as possible. And if it sounds too good to be true, it is. Like, if someone's saying like, you can lose this and this, or just take this pill and it's a fat loss pill, it's like, forget about it.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think, the only other one I would say with the nutrition is like, there is some food services out now as well, and they can be super helpful.
For at least starting habits, right?
Yeah. Like, I know I used one and I was just buying like bulk meats off them. You can just buy bulk meat pre-cooked. So I didn't have to cook. It was just like veggies or whatever. And that was super time, saving. And like, I'd just get a couple of packs for the week. Do you know what I mean? Just to be like, oh, I'll chuck a couple in the freezer, a couple here, so that you can make good choices.
Yeah, that's it. There's definitely, in an ideal world, it's making yourself fresh food and all sort of stuff. But if you're time poor or maybe knowledge poor, like, companies, I can't think of other examples, like HelloFresh, where like they send you the ingredients and they give you the recipes, and it's like, start there,
and it comes down to portion control.
Cool. So we touched on Zach before, 2016-ish, maybe you started Legacy Tours.
Probably was.
That's what your LinkedIn says.
There you go. Mate, that's 8 years ago now. So time flies.
What, run us through it. What is it? What was it?
So Legacy Tours is probably, like we were saying before, with the sponsorship stuff, right? We would, both Zach and I, anyone probably with a sponsorship, or depending what level your sponsorship was and all the rest of it, you'd be lucky enough to travel the world. We'll go to different destinations, whether that be around Australia, Europe, America, wherever it might be. Okay. And so part of that tour, like we used to go to Olympia. I think I was lucky enough. I went like 6 years or so in a row to go there as part of events with companies. And so we'd go there, we'd do a week in like LA, just hang out and train at Gold's Gym, meet up with like different pros. We'd obviously know some of the influencers and things like that. So we'd train with them, just hang out, eat, travel around, go to different gyms. Then we'd head down to this is just an example. We'd head down to Vegas and would do the expos again, same sort of thing. Catch up with people we knew within the industry, train, getting content, all different things like this, right? So we'd come home and like for years and years, like people would just be saying, "Oh man, that's awesome! I'd love to do that." All the rest of it. And I'm like, well, sort of could do it, right? So I sort of conceptualized. It's not a new concept, like people have done this before, but to try and put that together to be able to do for Vegas, for America, and for Thailand, for Bali, and then we're going to start to look at other destinations after that. So, so we started to piece that together. I ended up going over. It might have been that year. I think it was that year. Actually went over there with Dan Manzola, who's another pro, Robbie. Robbie, who's another pro from WWF as well, and they were prepping. They were doing the LA show, and I was like, I'm going to come along, tag with you guys, and just create some content and do some scouting for these things that I want to do. They're like, yep, sweet. So we came along, did that. While they were prepping, I would drive around and go to all these different gyms and suss it all out, get all the accommodation, get all the contacts in place, food companies, sponsorships, all start to tee that up to get that lined up. So we did that, came back, and I got Zach, who happened to be, I think he was living with Callum or something over there at the time or whatever. And I teed him up to come on the tour with us later that year. And so we got together and basically said, look, do you want to do this with me? And he was like, yeah, cool. We did that. And then we started to combine to be able to get sponsorships on board with the tours, to be able to provide supplements, food, all those type of things. So the whole package of it was to be able to get people, take them, experience what it was like to be a sponsored athlete in a way. Yeah. So we'd do that on the tours. I had organized for a couple of pros who like Olympian pros to come train the guys, different things. There's a guy, a mate of ours called Stanimal. So we were mates because me and him, we were in bodybuilding.com's top 20 something of one of the years. So we were mates. We'd been chatting and all the rest of it. He was a men's physique pro. He'd gone up to Classic, and now he's in Open. He's a weapon. He's actually a really, really great guy, Stanimal. And he came in, mate, he spent 3 hours, 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours with these guys, taking them through training, like, all free of charge, all this stuff, like just giving that experience. We'd go into the firehouse like Arnie and these guys would do. So all this experience is stuff that people could go do it on their own. 100% they can go do it on their own. But getting around, knowing where to go, how to do it, all the thing is the part that we were sort of melding together. And then, they'd just pay one price and then they'd come and have that experience. So I think on that tour as well, I'd end up teeing up. There was a thing called Super League in Vegas at one of the gyms there, and I was mates with them and got us a private session in this thing, Super League. So it was like a massive dome thing where we would run through and do it's a combination of all different activities. And I think
I remember seeing that.
Yeah, bro. It was epic. We did it. We were lucky enough they did it for us twice. Had some really good friends down there that through that gym, and they were amazing. And I think even one of the other times we were there, and I was taking the boys through one of the training sessions. We were doing a training session, and then Jay Cutled's seen a couple of us at one of the expos in Melbourne, like a couple of weeks before. And he's like on the treadmill and yells out to us. He's like, hey, goes, what are you guys doing? We're like, oh, we're just here doing this. And he's like, all right, I'll come upstairs. So Jay Cutler's come upstairs, spent like 45 minutes with us just talking about health and nutrition. Like, so these are experiences you couldn't actually buy this experience.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you couldn't actually buy this experience. Like, so we got this all filmed on footage and everything. So this is what we're doing. We'll take them around. This is exactly what would happen. We would go somewhere, and because you're there with these people, you would get these opportunities to interact and meet and have and learn. Which is what we were doing. And so we just sort of opened that up. And so yeah, we did America. I think we did 2 to America, and a couple of those guys, like, I still chat to a lot of them. I still catch up with them. So build some really good friendships out of those things. And, so that was America. We did Thailand a couple of times. That was great as well. We had some really awesome experiences there. We did have bigger plans for the company. We were trying to now leverage and just do brand oriented tours. So what that meant is we would engage like influencers using our network, right? And then incorporate sponsorship companies in to be able to go say, hey, look, I'm going to get all these people for you to be able to go and create content in a location, do whatever, just create content and build hype around their brand and all the rest of it. So we'd actually teed up 2 brands. We had like one of them was for about 100 plus K, another one was for like, this is after expenses, like actually making profits now. And so yeah, we had a couple like that. And then we were scoping out Bali, and we jumped off. I think I've recorded this. I jumped off at Mississippi. Me and Zach jumped off, did a backflip off the diving boards there. I landed in the water, and with me and him, I was holding a GoPro, and with Zach and I landed in the water at the same time. I literally shredded everything in my shoulder. So I've done this backflip off, landed in the water. I've come up, and I was just like, actually, it took me a minute to come up. I was just like, ugh. Weirdly enough, felt like I've been winded. And we'd taken, Nina was with us, and my wife who was with us, and we went and sat down. I didn't say anything, got out of the water, and she's like, are you all right? And I'm like, I'm actually not sure.
I think I need a minute.
Just give me 5 minutes and I'll tell you. And I hadn't, because my shoulder was like sort of hanging a bit. I hadn't even tried to move it. And like, because this is like maybe day 1 or day 2 that we're in Bali for X amount of period of time. And so I sat there for a couple of minutes, and I'm like, all right, let's go. And I was going to move it, and it didn't move at all. And I'm like, okay. So she's like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I think we'll just keep going. So I went home, had to get surgery the next day. But the reason I say that is based on that, I couldn't fulfill some of the contracts. They'd fallen through something else. That happened, then COVID and other things. So it sort of lost the steam. We had momentum with it. And conceptually wise, we were getting into Sean from the Aussie Expos was getting us in, is getting us boost. We're building these out. We're doing everything we did to build the business. And it was going really well. Like from a fitness side, the industry was really supportive behind it. It was just trying to get the clientele to go. That's why we looked at both clientele and brand to be able to help position us and grow. But yeah, it sort of fell a little bit from there.
Yeah, because like you're right. The idea isn't anything new. Like there's tours all the time of different things. It's just a niche sort of bodybuilding tour.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I can go and book all that now, but I can't speak to Jay Cutler. No. I can't get the other pro to come in, like that's this. And if you're aspiring, when I was doing prep, you get immersed into that world. You get sucked into it. I would have died at meeting the chance of like all those big boys. I couldn't care now, but I'd still learn something. Don't get me wrong. I'd still love to chat to them, but like, you know what I mean? Like it's money can't buy experience. So were there any major roadblocks trying to get it off the ground initially?
No, industry wise, we had some really good support. As I said, Sean from the Aussie Expos, who've just relaunched this year or last year, and having some really good success. He was amazing for us, actually. He, really helped push me and Zach to sort of get us into these expos and get vision and get eyes on us. Pauline and Ari, they pushed some of the promotion through us through the WBFF shows at the time. We had really good uptake, even when we were going to the States and we had sponsorships come involved, getting the food, doing all the things. My other sponsors, Cellucor, here, providing us with stuff. Like, everyone was keen for it. Everyone wanted it. Everyone loved the idea, because it wasn't a U-Yi, but the experience was, so like, it wasn't like active escapes where you just go and do the same thing over and over again, right? It's a repeat experience for whoever goes. That's probably a very broad statement, but it was, everyone was kind of different a little bit, and if we were able to get those things in place, then there's no reason why we couldn't have like you say, bodybuilding is quite a niche, right? So but then does that open us up to be able to go, oh, I've got a knitting tour that needs to happen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatever
the niche is, you just copy and paste.
We've got the model then to be able to do it. We've got the contacts. We know how to do it. This is like not just in Australia. This is internationally. So, we sort of had that all in place, and so it just fell on, and COVID sort of killed it. Obviously, the ability to travel. And we actually nearly revived it. Dan Manzola and I nearly revived it. I can't even remember if that was last year or the year before now. We were going to do some stuff with Cellucor, but it just didn't quite get over the line. So we'd done all the prep work with it, which would have been good. We were going to do a competition for them, and then based on that would have been able to create some more content to sort of launch. But it just didn't align with everything that we were doing. So
yeah. If you were to do it again, like go back to 2016 or whatever, is there anything you'd change the way you set it up? Or do you think you kind of got it right and it was just a series of events that unfolded?
No, look, I think it was okay. The only part, that we didn't get to the modeling that we wanted to is that we couldn't let Zach and I just be the face of it constantly, because that would have meant that every tour we had to go on. So what we wanted to do is pull influencers in to help build their profile and build ours, and use that mutual sort of thing to be able to get them on and go, hey, look, we'll pay you to go and do this tour, create all this content for you as well. And you just, here's the exchange, is you got to train these people, right? So we get a couple of people to do that per tour. That was the modeling we wanted to get to, but we just didn't quite land there. And, it's a hard niche. I think even you see some of the other bodybuilding or the other tours that happen now, and they're great. They're awesome. I know Chris Thomas has done some with Alpha Ethos. There's a couple others that have gone up to Bali, different things like that. Yeah, it's just trying to get the numbers there, and people understanding the value that they get out of it, right? Because I think sometimes people think, I can just go do that. And I'm like, you can, but you've also got to organize all your own shit. You've got to know where to go. You've got to know just all that type of stuff. It's just time consuming. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, I just came back from Japan with the family, and I'm like, if I went back, I'd know all these other things that I need to do now, right? And it just makes it such a better experience. Like, if you could go onto a holiday, or, and it's a holiday, it's a working holiday, depending what you want. If you're trying to we were creating content, we were doing all these things. So depending what you want out of it, you just turn up, and you're just like, okay, what are we doing now? So
yeah.
That
it's like a bodybuilding Kentucky.
Oh, right.
You just get on the bus.
Yeah. I think, we were in Vegas as well, so we didn't squander the opportunity to have like a blowout one night as well. So
everyone knows bodybuilders know how to party. Yeah. Is there, with Legacy and like the pro stuff and all your bodybuilding fitness model stuff, is there any one particular event that you were like, I can't believe I get to do this. This is so cool.
Honestly, and I think all of them. Yeah. And I used to say this to Zach, right? When he was going, he was doing all this stuff, because he was blowing up at the time. I go, how good's this weight? Just from lifter weights, and that's what I looked at it as, like, because I would be doing it anyway. I would be obviously the things I got to experience, all the rest of it would be different. But I was already going to the gym. I was already doing all these things. Like nothing outside of going to the gym would have changed for me, right? But I looked at everything that I got was a blessing. Do you know what I mean? Like it was something to be thankful for. Is the way I look at it. I think people need to remember that sometimes. Like there's. I think just in life, there's an expectation. It's whether you're a half glass full or half glass empty person, right? Everything that I got was amazing. And like I said to you at the start with Nina, I said, look, I'm already 32. This can't last for that long, So we'll just run with it. And when it dries up, because you just become not as relevant. You know what I mean? Like there's new things happening. There's new younger people. They just that association is less. So you need to be appreciative for what you've got, or if you want to stay relevant, you've got to reinvent yourself to stay in there. So
nice. With all of your fitness modeling, bodybuilding, prep coaching, preps, all that sort of stuff, are there any lessons there or skill sets, attributes, whatever you want to call it, that you've learned there and then you can take back to the corporate world and you go, oh, like, I don't know, skills that you've learned, and you go, oh, I can use this here, or just the mindset from prepping and you get to work, you're like, oh, this is easy compared to prepping, or anything like that?
Yeah, I probably haven't. I think that it's a hard question actually, because I think it's all still strategy based. Like for me, when I looked at that, and like it was trying to manage. At one point, I was working. Full time, PTing, doing all influencer stuff and legacy. So, and like to that, on top of family commitments and everything else. So, look, it's a hard thing to compare. Like the one thing I would say is everything is based around relationships. For me, being a PT trainer, like I wasn't that person that was like, you got 15 minutes and then you're gone. Yeah. I would give you time. I would give you energy, because I want to see things succeed for you. And the same in business. I just want to see people succeed. Like that gives me satisfaction. You know what I mean? So, I think relationships is the main thing for me. If you can do that, a relationship doesn't mean that it always benefits me. Yeah. Sometimes it's connecting the right people, all those type of things, and building someone to reach their own goals. So that's where they connect. Yeah.
Yeah. Sweet. All right. We're into our final 3 moments. I ask the same 3 questions for all the guests. So the first one is, has anyone given you a piece of advice in any realm of your life that's really stuck with you and you've sort of passed it on to others?
2.
Oh,
2 times. 2 times. And funnily enough, they were from my parents, this is probably the only things that have stuck with me. So my dad always had a viewpoint of, well, if something's happened, it's in the past now. So what's your next move? Yeah. So always to be like, don't dwell, move forward, which I think is probably the best advice I've ever got in my life, because you can be stuck somewhere, but you will never get away from it if you can't move forward. So probably the best piece of advice, anyone out there, don't get stuck there.
Write that down.
The other one was actually from my mum, and this is a strange one to get from my mum, but she would always say to me, you should always ask. The worst thing someone can say is no. Yeah. Which is true.
Yeah.
If you don't ask, you don't get. Depends, no matter what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, they're both common sort of pieces of advice, but they work.
They're very, very simple. They're very, very simple, but they're good moral standing points. Yeah. So.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Recently, or even, 20 years ago, whatever, is there a book or a podcast or something that you've consumed that you would really recommend for someone to read or listen to?
Probably Arnie's book. That was probably the first one that I read, and just gave you a foundation. Yeah, I think, if you're into training in that type of thing, a lot of the things he says ring true. The information he has in there, the training programs, all the rest of it, it's probably the easiest starting point. Yeah, for someone, especially in the world of the internet. This book has been the same since he's put it out. Hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And he's a bit of a weapon, and there's some truth to what he's got in there. Yeah.
And then the last one, what's next on the vision board of Joe Pitt?
It's a good question. At the moment, I'm very focused in on the corporate work life that we've got. I still do some coaching with a few people, but I do sort of just keep it select and because I want to give that personal experience and to sort of overcook and take too many people on sort of takes away from that. I'm trying to have a good balance, but at the moment, work's been pretty busy. There still is a couple of things in the background that I'm looking at with some people, but they're not ready to go yet.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Can't play your cards too early.
Yeah. But look, I think always keen to sort of keep an eye open for something, for opportunity. These days, having a job isn't always enough. So looking for something else to better and to something you enjoy is probably something that sort of just need to keep focused on.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time, Joe. Greatly appreciate it. It's been good listening to all your stories and your adventures, and wish you all the best.
Awesome, mate. Thanks for having me on. All the best with the rest of the podcast.
Thank you.
Cheers.